Hello and welcome to this short investor presentation on MBH Corporation PLC. Over the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to share how we connect sophisticated capital with talented small business owners and what are the key opportunities that currently investors are missing out when it comes to small business. So if you have a short attention span, here are the 5 things that I'm going to cover off. I'm going to cover off how MBH is a holding company that currently owns 26 profitable cash generating businesses. I'm going to talk about how the founders of those companies stay on and run the businesses and own around 60% of the public stock. I'm going to talk about the fact that we've issued a dividend every year since listing. I'm going to talk about the fact that our unique selling proposition is the fact that we attract lots of companies. We attract an average of 2 to 3 companies a day that apply to join our group. And I'm going to talk about the highly experienced management team that we have and our desire to be one of the most transparent publicly listed companies that you own. And from a pure investment perspective, I'm going to show how we're currently trading at about an 80% discount to our peers, or about 1 times net assets. So the board that we have is a fantastic board. We've got Vicky Sylvester, who's an incredible entrepreneur. She's won numerous awards for her work in both healthcare and as an entrepreneur in general. She sits with me on the board of directors. She also represents all of the principals. We have Lisa Maynard-Atom, who is a former marketing manager for Harrods. She's the director of Burn, and she's also a member of the General Assembly of Manchester University. We've got Margaret Manning, OBE, a very accomplished entrepreneur who sold her most recent business to Ernst & Young. And we have Stan Pate, who has got decades of public company experience and capital markets experience. We have myself. I've been an entrepreneur for about 2 decades. I've started, bought and sold dozens of companies. This is the 2nd company that I've taken public. I've written 3 best-selling books on business, 2 of which are about the model that MBH is currently running. If you'd like copies of those books, I'd be happy to give you complimentary copies. Just reach out and connect with me. So Mittelstand is the biggest asset class you don't own. A Mittelstand, or the small to medium business world, is completely off limits to typical investors. Small business owners make up around 50%, or small business make up around 50% of global GDP in developed countries. They make up 90% of private sector employment. But if you're an investor looking to invest in those small businesses, and remember, they're very attractive, especially after a downturn like we've been through. They can respond very quickly, and a single contract can double or triple the profits of a small business. Yet for you, the sophisticated investor, it's too difficult to invest in them. It's too difficult to do the due diligence. There's not enough transparency, and it's too risky, and it's too illiquid. You're unable to get your money out of those companies. So what we've done is we've brought together a bunch of very good companies that we've found. As I mentioned earlier, we get about 1,000 applications a year. We go through them, and we've found the best companies we can in the construction space, the transport space, education. So 26 companies, 8 industries, 5 countries, and we have one key focus. And I'll come back to what that key focus is at the end of this presentation. All of this information, by the way, can be found on our website, mbhcorporation.com. So the 3 key drivers of shareholder value, and this is what drives everything that we do at MBH. Number 1 is accretive acquisitions. Unlike other companies, we don't pay cash for the companies that we bring into the group. In fact, for the small business owner, it's a little bit like they're taking their company public through our holding company. They're reversing in, and we'll give them stock or our own bonds, but it's always done in an earnings per share accretive manner so that you, the shareholder, are not diluted by bringing in this extra EBIT. We look at organic growth. When we're buying well-established, profitable, cash-generating companies. But what you might not be aware of is that small companies often hit a glass ceiling. Big companies don't want to give big contracts to small companies. Yet when they join us, they're able to they're able to leverage off the balance sheet of the entire group, and they win much bigger contracts because of it. They're also able to attract more senior staff because of it. They're also able to do their own acquisitions because of it. So organic growth is a key area for us. And the final one is group synergies. And even though we're multiple different industries, there's lots of opportunities for the companies in our group to collaborate together. And it's a very collaborative environment. So here you can see the publicly listed company itself has only been trading for less than 3 years. We started trading in December of 2018. You can see on the left here, the number of companies has been growing steadily each year. And on the right, you can see how the revenue has grown. Now, obviously, we took a big dip in last year because of COVID. And I'll talk about, so one industry in particular was hard hit. We had a number of construction companies, or a large percentage of our revenue came from construction companies, and they were particularly hard hit by COVID. But I'm pleased to say not a single business in our group went bust. And in fact, all losses were contained to just one industry sector, which was the construction industry. And that is starting to bounce back very strongly. So you can see it's been reflected in our EBIT. We had a big, we started off well, nice growth in December 2019 as we added companies. Then there was a drop because of COVID, and now we're heading back up. So in our last reported numbers, which was the first half of this year, which we've just reported, we had revenue up to nearly £50 million. It's up 81% on last year. And our EBIT is up to £3 million for the first half of this year, up 271%. Now, we have added some debt to the books that we didn't have, but this is not external debt, or it's a little bit of external debt, but we have our own bonds. So this is a tool that we use to do acquisitions, even when our share price is low. So bonds typically are used by companies. You raise the bonds, you sell them to investors, you use that cash to do acquisitions. We don't use cash to do acquisitions. We want business owners coming into the group, remaining committed to their business and growing it. So oftentimes we can offer to use our own bonds as a way of bringing companies in. So you can see that the level of bonds has come up, but we're very comfortable with the ratio of debt in our own bonds. The principals themselves, as I mentioned, we've got 26 companies in the group. On average, we've got about 30 years of industry experience in each entrepreneur. So these are well-established business owners that are bringing their companies in. In fact, every time we add another company, we're adding another 30 years on average of entrepreneurial experience and problem-solving experience. And of course, because they're shareholders in the group, they're very, very committed and vested to the long-term success of the whole group. Many award-winning entrepreneurs, and as I mentioned, between them, they own around 60% of the public stock. Now, most corporations can only dream about their senior management owning that much stock, and most shareholders would love to see senior management owning that much stock. Well, that's very much the reality of MBH. And 100% of our principals are under orderly market agreements. That means they could sell if they want to. They need to offer it to their peers first. Then they need to offer it to our broker to sell off market. And finally, it goes on market. But we know exactly who would be selling if they are selling. But most of these principals have joined. In fact, all of these principals have joined because they see the future. They want to be part of something bigger. They're not exiting when they join us. Shareholder alignment is something that we take very, very seriously. Executive board members must own at least 6% salary in stock. Now, best practice for public companies is executive board members to own 3 times. So we've gone with double, and the executive directors on our board do own at least 6 times their annual salary in stock. Another innovation that we have in our company, which I don't think you'll see in any other public company, is no board member may sell their stock while they serve on the board. Now, this came because I've personally served on boards where I've seen board members make decisions for their own personal self-interest and not for the interest of all shareholders. So we don't want to attract people to our board now or in the future that need to sell stock for short-term needs. So no board member can sell. The principals are very much aligned with the interests of MBH. As I mentioned, they own the majority of the stock. They do have the opportunity to earn bonus shares for incremental additive EBIT contribution to the group. And we have an employee share option ownership program, which we've just begun rolling out. It's been very well received, and more of the employees across the group are starting to buy shares every month using their salary to do so. Three out of the 5 board members have bought in the last 12 months, and I personally have brought over 150,000 euros so far this year. And in the previous years, I've brought over 1 million shares. And all of this is trackable on dgap.de. So we're very, very aligned with all shareholders. We have a very strong ESG principle. Now, interestingly, there was a survey came out last week that said that German investors are the most skeptical of all investors about ESG. And I think that's a good thing. I think they should be skeptical. I think a lot of public companies are using ESG to greenwash, and there's not anything genuine behind it. We had a slightly different issue with ESG and MBH. Small businesses have been doing ESG for decades, not because it's now some new trendy investor term that is being used. They do it because small businesses have always supported their local communities. They've always helped out local charities. They've always given jobs to locals, sponsored local sports teams. It's just naturally what small businesses do. So we knew that the companies in our group had very strong ESG credentials. What we took a while to figure out was, how do we articulate that in a way that you, the investor, can see what the impact is? So we looked around for a lot of different third-party recognitions. The one that we settled on is the support the goals standard. Now, there's a few companies out there that are trying to provide investors with some kind of benchmarks. Support the goals has worked with 2,500 companies. Now, MBH Corporation received 5 stars. Less than 1% of the companies that they review receive 5 stars. So incredibly good recognition that what we're doing is actually making a tangible difference in the world. And again, we're not doing it because it's a nice thing to do for investors. We're doing it because we're already committed to it in each of the small businesses. If you'd like more information on that, again, there's a large section on our webpage about it. So in terms of shareholder opportunity, this is the latest analyst report that came out. This is from a well-respected American analyst, and they've given us a target buy price of around €7 for this time next year. Now, this price may seem quite high, but actually what they've done is they've looked at our peers, so conglomerate holding companies like ours, and said, if we carry on doing the rate of acquisitions that we've been doing this time next year, if we just go based on what our peers are, this is what would be a fair price for us. If you'd like to read that research, again, it's on our website, mbhcorporation.com. Now, one of the things we pride ourselves on very much is around investor transparency. I'm an investor myself. I find one of the challenges, I love supporting small and micro cap companies, but I find one of the challenges is it's very, very difficult to get information on those companies. Now, you've got to remember that 60% of our shareholders are the principals themselves. They're business owners. They're used to having full transparency of everything in their company. And so when they join us, obviously they want transparency of everything that's going on in the group. And so we level that transparency up for everyone. We're very active on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, and we have lots of videos on our YouTube channel. We bring out new videos pretty much every day. Every quarter, all of the principals are on a webinar with investors, so investors can ask questions. Any investor questions that come in through our website get answered within 24 hours. And I do a monthly Q&A with one of our other board members. And again, if you have any questions, we can answer them there. So very, very comprehensive investor relations. And I think that's just, again, as an investor myself, I think that's very important. So what is this focus and what is the long-term gain for MBH? Well, investors and small business owners tend to have very different values and approaches. Most investors, their primary value is around making money, and that's very understandable. That's how they create value. Most small business owners often sacrifice making money in the short term for them, the business owner, in return for some kind of reward in the future. They build value for others first. So what we want to do is we want to find those companies that have created value, consistently created value over years or even decades. And we're trying to build an ecosystem that will continue to attract those businesses. Now, we're traded on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Frankfurt Stock Exchange is around 400 years old. The Amsterdam Stock Exchange is around 400 years old. Wall Street is 200 years old. London Stock Exchange is 200 years old. These are examples of ecosystems that over the last several hundred years have managed to attract great companies into their ecosystems because they offer something more to that company. Now, the companies themselves obviously haven't lasted hundreds of years. In fact, many of those companies have gone bust or been consolidated or gone out of, dropped off the market. But the market itself has thrived. In fact, entire industries have disappeared. So what MBH is doing is creating an ecosystem that attracts small businesses in it. And we recognize that not every business is still going to be here in 100 years. Not every industry is still going to be here in 100 years. But as long as small businesses can win more business when they're part of us, can get the support of their peers in the group, then we think we can continue to attract more businesses. And we think we are duty bound to those businesses to create an environment that does have a runway of multi-generational, so that these businesses can continue to thrive if they have what it takes. And I want to end with a quick story on one of the companies that we brought into the group, a company called Robinson's Caravans. So like I mentioned, we're looking for profitable, cash-generating, owner-operated businesses that have been going for a fair length of time, and we believe will continue to be successful. One of the businesses that came across our table was a company called Robinson's Caravans, been operating for over 50 years. Now, caravans are not the most glamorous of businesses, but it was a cash-generating business. It was a great business. And we thought it would be a good addition to the group. So we brought it in March of 2020. Now, you may remember in April of 2020, the UK and many other countries started locking down because of COVID, and a lot of international travel ground to a halt. With that, there was a huge increase in inquiries for caravans. And in fact, caravans had a massive boom over the last 12 to 18 months. Robinson's has been at the forefront of that and has done incredibly well because of it. At some point in the future, I'm sure I will claim that this was my amazing foresight that I brought this company in the month before COVID struck. But the reality is it was just luck. What we're looking for and what comes out time and time again when you speak to the principals is that these are just good businesses. They're good cash generating businesses. And when they join a group like ours, they really have the opportunity to thrive. And therefore, the opportunity for you as an investor is rather to put your money into a single small business and then worry about how you're going to get that money out. It's to join us, become a business owner with us, and get that opportunity to invest in numerous small businesses that are all doing well through accretive acquisitions, through organic growth, and through the synergies that wash out between the companies. So we would welcome you to join us as fellow owners of the group. If you do have any questions, do please reach out to us through our website or through any of the other mediums, and we'd be happy to answer any questions and bring you on board. Thank you very much.